Hamas has released 16 more hostages late last night in the last swap for Palestinian prisoners held by Israel under the current Gaza truce. I'll give you all the details on Israel in just a moment. House Republicans are considering a formal vote on their impeachment inquiry of President Joe Biden. There are reports that Majority Whip Tom Emmer, he's a Republican from Minnesota, told members in a closed-door meeting yesterday that they could vote in the coming weeks on a move that could strengthen the investigation's legal standing. The annual Reagan National Defense Survey has found Americans' confidence in the U.S. presidency has hit its lowest point ever under President Joe Biden. We have all the details for you. Also, more news on the Hunter Biden investigation. A bank investigator responsible for detecting and combating money laundering warned back in 2018 of, quote, unusual and erratic activity related to more than a dozen wire transfers of large sums of money to accounts belonging to Hunter Biden. Evidently, the senior leadership at the banks ignored the warning. We have the details on that as well. And with election year 2024 just literally around the corner, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, cases of COVID-19 variant Omicron BA.2.86, also known as Perilla, have tripled in the last 2 weeks, causing the CDC to recommend, outside of vaccines, that high-risk groups adopt risk-mitigating behaviors, frequently washing your hands, avoiding crowd environments, and guess what? Wearing masks. Welcome and glad to have you in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studio. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. I'm Joey Hudson, and this is Just the Truth.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but, you know, they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
He was a diplomat, an academic, Secretary of State for 2 presidents, and advisor to many. At the age of 100, Henry Kissinger died at his home in Connecticut yesterday. Kissinger was both revered and controversial, praised by supporters as a brilliant strategist, and condemned by critics as a master manipulator. He pioneered the policy of détente with the Soviet Union, began a rapprochement with China, and won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1973 for negotiating the Paris Peace Accords to end U.S. involvement in Vietnam. In the latest news in Israel, Hamas released 16 hostages late yesterday afternoon. In the last swap for Palestinian prisoners, the Israeli military said a group of 10 Israeli women and children and 4 Thai nationals had been freed by Hamas and exited Gaza. Earlier, 2 Russian Israeli women were freed by Hamas in a separate release. Israel was set to free 30 Palestinian prisoners in return. Negotiators were working down to the wire, we're told, to hammer out the details for a further extension of the truce beyond its deadline of early today. The talks appear to be growing tougher as most of the women and children held by Hamas are freed, and the militants are expected to seek greater release in return for freeing the men and some of the soldiers they're holding. International pressure has mounted for the ceasefire to continue as long as possible after nearly 8 weeks of Israeli bombardment and a ground campaign in Gaza that has killed thousands of Palestinians, uprooted 3/4 of the population of the about 2.3 million, and has led to a humanitarian crisis. Israel has welcomed the release of dozens of hostages in recent days and says that it will remain the truce if Hamas keeps freeing their captives. Still, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said yesterday that Israel will resume its campaign to totally eliminate Hamas, which has ruled Gaza for the past 16 years and orchestrated the deadly attack on Israel that has triggered this war. He said in a statement, after this phase of returning our abductees is exhausted, will Israel return to fighting? So my answer is an unequivocal yes. There's no way we're not going back to fighting until the end. He spoke ahead of a visit to the region planned this week by U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken to press for further extensions of the truce and hostage releases. We'll see what happens up next. Just as Joe Biden believes that things can't get any worse, well, actually, I'm afraid they do. Americans' confidence in the U.S. presidency has hit its lowest point ever under President Joe Biden's administration. This according to the annual Reagan National Defense Survey. According to the survey, just 36% of Americans say that they had either a great deal or some confidence in the presidency, while 17% said they had very little, and 47% said not much at all. Those numbers continued a downward trend since the survey was first taken under President Donald Trump's administration in November of 2018, when at that time, 44% said that they had a great deal or some confidence in the presidency. The number of those having not much confidence at all has held steady since then. The survey also found that just 38% held a favorable view of Biden and 59% have an unfavorable view. President Trump fared significantly better with a 47% favorable rating and 50% unfavorable rating. Biden's favorability has fallen sharply since February of 2021, just after his inauguration in January of that year, when it stood at 53%. I mean, think about that for a minute. You're inaugurated, and your favorability with the people who you think elected you falls every single month after what should be your best few months in the office. When asked about the 2024 presidential election, 63% of likely Republican voters say that they wanted to see Trump as the party's nominee. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has 10%, former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley at 8%, Vivek Ramaswamy, the entrepreneur, 4%, former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie at 1%. All other candidates received less than 1%. In a hypothetical 2024 matchup, Trump beats Biden 42% to 36%, with 9% saying that they would support another candidate and 9% saying they would not vote. I never understand how people think not voting is an option. As Americans, we should all vote. We should never think that not voting is ever the answer. The results of this survey come after this is the 6th year and 10th Reagan National Defense Forum. It included the participation of 2,506 U.S. adults surveyed between October 27th and November the 5th. So with election year 2024 literally just weeks away as we enter the new year, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, cases of COVID-19 variant, the Omicron BA2.86, also known as Parola, have tripled in the past 2 weeks, comprising between 5% and 15% of all infections. The COVID-19 variant, as well as its offshoots, including several others, and they have all of these, like JN.1, BA2.86. I'm not sure what the method is in naming these, but they've been reclassified as, quote, a variant of interest by the World Health Organization. Despite its prevalence, the BA2.86 does not appear to be driving increases in infections or hospitalizations in the U.S., according to the CDC. Both the CDC and the WHO agree that the public health risk posed by this variant is low compared to other variants that are circulating. However, with that being said, health officials still say that while the pandemic is officially over, COVID-19 is not a thing of the past. According to the doctors, the increase in the cases of this new variant is due to the U.S. entering the COVID-19 season and also a sufficient number of people having developed non-BA2.86 immunity. Outside of vaccines, officials recommend that high-risk groups, older adults, adopt risk-mitigating behaviors that include frequently washing your hands, avoiding crowded environments, and guess what? Wearing masks. Are we going to go back into another debate of the effectiveness of wearing masks? We shall see. House Republicans are weighing whether to shore up their impeachment inquiry by taking a formal vote on the matter, with Majority Whip Tom Emmer telling members in a closed-door meeting, we're told yesterday, that they could vote in the coming weeks on a move that could bolster the investigation's legal standing. Basically, it is a test vote to see how much support there is for potentially impeaching Joe Biden. GOP members told The Hill that Majority Whip Emmer cited pushback from the White House in making his case for the vote. Former Speaker Kevin McCarthy kicked off the impeachment process without a House vote, you may recall, an action that he had criticized when then-Speaker Nancy Pelosi similarly delayed taking a formal vote to start an impeachment process against then-President Donald Trump. In a recent letter, the White House blasted the GOP for moving ahead on the inquiry without a vote, securing the backing from members, repeatedly referring to the, quote, impeachment inquiry, in quotes, and writing it as lacking constitutional legitimacy. But it was okay when they were impeaching Donald Trump. It was legitimate then. GOP members said that Emmer viewed taking a vote as one way to respond to the White House criticism, particularly as the House GOP ramps up complaints that it has not yet received all the information from the administration that it has asked for. Sounds like the White House sent over a response to Comer and Jordan about the impeachment inquiry that former Speaker McCarthy announced, saying that unless it's voted on by the whole House, that they wouldn't consider that it was a valid impeachment inquiry, one GOP lawmaker told The Hill. The Hill said, so this would be the House voting to just simply do what we thought we had done with Speaker McCarthy's declaration. A GOP leadership in-house considers impeachment. The investigation into the president's son, Hunter, continues with additional information being released yesterday. A bank investigator. Now, you got to listen kind of closely and follow this. But this bank investigator who is responsible for detecting and combating money laundering warned back in 2018 of some unusual and erratic activity related to more than a dozen wire transfers of what he called large sums of money to accounts belonging to, guess who? Hunter Biden. In an email released by House Oversight Committee yesterday, a Bank Secrecy Act manager had raised concerns that these payments did not appear to correspond to any services rendered, as well as Chinese efforts to target children of politicians. The investigator suggested that the bank should reevaluate its relationship with the client, Hunter Biden. The payments from China ultimately funded a $40,000 check that we are now aware of that was written to Joe Biden by his brother that had been labeled as a loan repayment. Comer, House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer is co-leading the impeachment inquiry against President Biden and has been investigating the Biden family's business dealings for months. It's like we keep getting new information all the time. Now, this email, again, it's from a Bank Secrecy Act manager whose job is to detect fraud. He had sent this email to an assistant vice president and branch manager of this bank. The names of the investigator, the vice president, and the bank have been redacted in the email that was dated in June of 2018. The investigator writes in the email, though, we have been monitoring the subject customer due to the PEP designation and observations on the account activity, as well as recent negative news indicate that this entity is a high risk. So they know that Hunter Biden is a high risk. They know that he's doing something that's not quite regular. By the way, when he refers to this PEP designation, PEP is short for politically exposed person, meaning that the individual, through their prominent position or relationships, could be more susceptible to being involved in bribery or corruption, according to LexisNexis Risk Solutions. And look, we certainly know that describes Hunter Biden, doesn't it? The investigator wrote in the email, since the initial funding of $5 million from Northern International Capital Holdings, And this was done, he said, on 8/8 of 2017 as a business loan. It was noted that there was no loan agreement document submitted, which is rare in itself as well. The investigator noted that the funds in the account had primarily funded 16 wires ranging from just over $150,000 to over $400,000, totaling more than $2.9 million to a redacted name and to Owasco PC law firm in D.C. Owasco was an entity, of course, that was controlled by Hunter Biden, we now know. The investigator goes on to say these payments were indicated as management fees and reimbursements. The investigator said, "We find it unusual that approximately 58% of the funds were transferred to the law firm in a few months, and the frequency of payments appear erratic. It was also previously indicated that Hudson West 3 LLC does not currently have an investment project at this time, which raises further concerns as millions in fees are being paid but does not appear to have any services rendered by Owasco PC." I mean, this guy in 2018 obviously knew that Hunter Biden was up to no good, and nobody listened to him, or at least I would imagine that these bank vice presidents probably wanted it to go away. They probably did not want to confront Hunter Biden, knowing, of course, that his dad had been vice president. Furthermore, he writes, there's been negative news regarding the beneficial owner of Owasco PC, Robert Hunter Biden, son of former U.S. Vice President Joe Biden, regarding allegations by his ex-wife that there were financial concerns about his extravagant spending on his own interests. And he, in parentheses, he notes drugs, strip clubs, and prostitutes, which may put his family in a deep financial hole. The investigator also pointed to more recent negative news that indicates China targeting children of politicians and purchase of political influence through, quote, sweetheart deals. Well, we know Hunter Biden got several sweetheart deals. The investigator wrote, in summing things up, specifically Hunter Biden's $1.5 billion deal with the Chinese state to establish a private equity firm in which they manage the funds over time and make huge fees. The management company's purpose is to invest in companies that benefit the Chinese government. One final thing that he added. Thus, the activity on the account appears unusual with no current business purpose, and along with the recent negative news, may require reevaluation of the bank's relationship with the customer. Of course, we know that never happened. We know that the bank never seemed to even question Hunter Biden. We know this because last month the Oversight Committee obtained bank records revealing that in August of 2017, $5 million in funds were sent to Hudson West 3, which was a joint venture established by Hunter Biden and an associate Chinese Communist Party-linked CEFC, Gangguan Dong. The records revealed that on the same day, this was August 8th, 2017. I know it's hard to kind of keep up with some of these dates, but trust me, it's the same date. Hunter West III sent $400,000 to Hunter Biden's law firm, as mentioned by the bank investigator in this email. Then on August the 14th, the next week, Hunter Biden wired $150,000 to Lion Hall Group, a company owned by his uncle James Biden and his aunt Sarah Biden. And then August 28th, a couple of weeks later, Comer said that Sarah Biden withdrew $50,000 in cash from the Lion Hall Group and later deposited it into her and James Biden's personal checking account. And then guess what happened? Just a few days later is when Sarah Biden wrote a check for $40,000 to Joe Biden. And in the memo line of the check, it says loan repayment. The White House, upon discovery of the check, said the committee found that as a private citizen, the president loaned his brother James his own money when his brother needed it and only discovered a record that he was repaid. Now, am I the only one asking the question? Is this not simple? I mean, why not just get James Biden to show proof that his brother Joe loaned him the money? I mean, if he loaned him the money, there's a record of it, right? There's a check going into his account. Let us see that. Let us see that check. And if he can't produce it, then we know it wasn't really a loan, right? Representative Comer, reacting to the new emails yesterday, said that the money laundering experts' concerns were raised long before his committee's investigation. In a statement, he said, long before our investigation into President Biden's corruption, a bank money laundering investigator raised the exact concerns that we raised publicly about the Biden family business. Payments appear erratic, does not appear to have any services rendered, no current business purpose, and China targets children of politicians and purchase of political influence. Sweetheart deals, he says. Those are the words of a bank investigator who was just doing his job. The bank investigator was so concerned about Hunter Biden's financial transactions with this Chinese company, he wanted to reevaluate the bank's relationship with Hunter Biden, but was overruled, evidently. Comer said that even worse, we know that the sitting president of the United States knew about it, participated in it, and benefited from his family's shady China dealings. Went on to say Joe Biden showed up to his son's CEFC meetings and benefited from the money wired from China. Comer went on to blast the White House and their corporate media allies' efforts to excuse and cover up this blatant corruption, calling the denials appalling to the American people. And he's still getting away with it. 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639 is how you can send a quick text message. Love to hear your comments on this. You can leave me a quick voice message, and your emails always are welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. So tonight is the night. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis debates California Governor Gavin Newsom on the Sean Hannity Show. Is this a do-or-die moment for Governor DeSantis? Some think so. Before we get into that, let me talk with you a minute about myphdweightloss.com. You need to write that site down right now. 3 years ago, I met Dr. Ashley Lucas and her team at PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition. I lost 30 pounds pretty quickly, and over 3 years later, I have been able to maintain that weight. You can too. Go to myphdweightloss.com. If you're ready to get healthy, if you're ready to lose the weight for the last time, this is not a fad diet. It's based on the science of nutrition. Then go to myphdweightloss.com. Set up that initial consultation so that you can be on your way to good health. 2024 could be your best year yet. You're going to feel better. You're going to have more energy. You're going to be able to focus. You're going to be able to wear clothes that you haven't been able to wear in a long, long time. Let me encourage you to set up that initial consultation and get started on your new life right now. myphdweightloss.com. PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition, the official program of the Clemson Tigers. So Republican Governor Ron DeSantis could be finished, according to some political analysts, if he doesn't perform well in a debate with Democrat Governor Gavin Newsom on Sean Hannity's show tonight. DeSantis and Newsom will meet for a televised debate tonight. Earlier yesterday, WOR radio host Mark Simone told Fox Business host Larry Kudlow that this could be it for Governor Ron DeSantis.
Let's talk a little politics here. Ron DeSantis and going up against Gavin Newsom on Sean Hannity tomorrow night. And then we've got all these endorsements. Nikki Haley just got endorsements by the Koch brothers. I don't know. You know, there's one guy who's ahead by 50 or 60 points, but folks don't seem to want to talk about that, except a few of us. We have Monica Crowley. Oh, wait a minute. She's a former assistant Treasury Secretary in the Trump administration. She is also the host of the Monica Crowley podcast. I finally got a shot at that. And we have Mark Simone, WOR radio show host, the best in the business. I'm serious about that. Can I just get to this? Gavin Newsom versus Ron DeSantis. I begin with you, Mark Simone. Sean Hannity will be the host and referee. What is your take on that? You taking the over or the under for DeSantis?
It's a big problem because he's not a good debater. He's had a rough time in debating two weak opponents in each gubernatorial race. He's not good at it. Now, in this case, it's a no-brainer. 1,000% the facts on his side. But he's a bad debater. Newsom is a handsome, dashing guy, a great salesman. If he ties or beats DeSantis in the charm category, the out-talking him category, that's it. DeSantis is finished. Actually, he was finished, but this time he may even know it.
You agree with Mark Simone that Gavin Newsom could have the advantage here? Former President Donald Trump, of course, leads DeSantis by an overwhelming margin. Latest Real Clear Politics average of polls, Trump has 61.3%, DeSantis 13.8%, while former ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley, received support of 9.9%. Kudlow turned to former Trump administration official Monica Crowley, who added that DeSantis has done a great job in Florida, but, well, there was a big but there.
Who are you picking?
Well,
Who are you picking?
Governor DeSantis has done an extraordinary job in the state of Florida. The economy there is booming. All of the outmigration from the Northeast and the Midwest and the West, where taxes and regulations are so high, he has welcomed them all. The economy has thrived culturally, socially, economically, you name it. But the style factor is huge. And Gavin Newsom is always full of it, Larry. But style tends to trump in formats like this. So we will have to see
Gavin
how it
Newsom
shakes
is
out.
very cool.
Ron
DeSantis is not very cool. But
I will say this. The red versus blue state debate is the debate we should be having.
It should be.
You agree with Larry Kudlow there that Gavin Newsom is more cool than Ron DeSantis? Since when did we allow the cool factor to be part of our decision-making for potentially a U.S. president? Newsom's approval rating, by the way, has dropped from 55% to 44% as he's been hyped by some of the media commentators as a potential replacement for Joe Biden on the Democrats' 2024 ballot. And Newsom, of course, denies that he's interested and that he would even consider it. DeSantis defeated Democrat Mayor Andrew Gillum of Tallahassee by just 0.41% in 2018, after they had a recount, by the way. In 2022, though, he won in a landslide, defeating former Democrat Representative Charlie Crist, who served as governor from 2007 to 2011 as a Republican. He beat him by 19%. DeSantis was expected, of course, to be much stronger in this presidential primary, but we're not seeing it in the polls now. 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639 is how you can participate, offer your comments on the Truth text line. You can also leave me a quick voicemail as well. Speaking of the Truth text line, some of the comments that you have sent in, Carol says, amen to the email you read. Raccoons have to go. How would I obtain a copy? She's talking about a story that I read yesterday that was sort of a comparison. It was a parable, if you will, of raccoons infesting your property and how you don't care how you get rid of them. You don't care about what the guy who could potentially get rid of those raccoons, what he looks like, what he acts like, how he talks. You just want the raccoons gone. And equated this to the same thing with Donald Trump. We just want our border secure. We want inflation to go away. We want government regulation to go away. We don't care how Trump looks or what he feels like. We just want him back in to do what we know he can do. By the way, just email me, joey@joeyhudson.com. I'll send you a copy of that. Tony says, Joey, I don't vote for critters, and I'm a little disappointed with Americans for Prosperity for backing the rhino Nikki. I'll stop supporting AFP. If it's not true winners like Trump or DeSantis, I will not be voting. Now, Tony, I just talked about that a minute ago. You have to vote. Not voting is not an option. You have to vote. Christy chimed in. This raccoon analogy is gold. Love it. I'm glad you liked it, Christy. Ace writes, Joey, do you think Trump has a chance? I get that he's leading, but we know that all can change the closer we get. I think DeSantis would have a chance if he had some international experience. Heck, if he had some national experience, but he doesn't. He only has Florida experience. I don't know. We'll see. Ron DeSantis, you may recall, was reluctant or acted as if he was reluctant to get into the race. Maybe he waited too long to do that. Jeff writes on the Truth text line, the 27 years means that he will get out because the murder conviction will be overturned. This is in reference to the Alec Murdaugh sentence yesterday. No, actually on Tuesday, I guess it was, of 27 years for the financial crimes. Our positive, encouraging text for the day, life is something to do when you can't get to sleep. God bless. Thank you for that. You can send your comments as well to the Truth text line. That's 864-477-5639. Someone emailed me something that evidently Dan Bongino has posted on social media that is now being circulated. It's titled, God Bless Southerners. Now, remember, Bongino is from the North, but he's lived a good bit of his life in the South. So here's how it goes. It says, and there's a photo of Dan Bongino. It says his pic was taken at the Iron Bowl last night, and I woke up today with some strong feelings about what I've experienced in the South. First, I'm a New York kid, born and raised, but I've spent most of my adult life far south of New York. Between Georgia, Maryland, Florida, and Alabama, we've been around. And I've really grown attached to Southerners, and here's why. Note, I obviously haven't met every person from the South. This is my experience, he says. So he starts listing the reasons that he loves people in the South. Number one, God matters. Their faith is central to their lives, and they're proud of it. Nothing comes before God, nothing. And you're right on that, Dan Bongino. Then the second one, manners and structure matter. They're not vestigial structures from a bygone era. They're links to the past and bridges to the future that instill order and discipline in a chaotic world. He writes then, they're proud but not arrogant. I once offered to buy a friend a pair of new boots because his were beat up and he flatly refused to take the offer. I saw it in his eyes and I instantly regretted it. I knew I had just misjudged the situation, and although my intentions were pure, I was angry at myself for not reading the room better. Bongino writes, they absolutely loved college football, but the love is pure, not contaminated. I sat with 80,000 plus people in Auburn watching a game that had zero chance of the home team producing a championship. I watched them scream. I watched them hug their wives and kids with a joy I've never seen before as each insane play of an amazing game unfolded. I also watched them cry at the ending that they didn't expect. And despite the ending, I watched them treat the Roll Tide fans with absolute respect on the way out. No fights, no evil, just a pure, innocent love of the game. I often joke on my podcast and radio show I'd like y'all, to adopt me, but I'm happy just being an observer. To the people I've met down south, thank you for so deeply enriching my life, and to those I haven't, God bless y'all. Dan Bongino. That's pretty cool, isn't it? 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Would love to get your comments. Elon Musk has a surprising response to a New York Times question about the current advertiser boycott of his social media platform, X. I'll tell you all about that. Just let me take a minute to tell you about Discounted Appliance Warehouse in Pickens. Portions of today's show is brought to you by Discounted Appliance Warehouse. If you're tired of dealing with appliance salespeople who know absolutely nothing about appliances, then let me encourage you to take the short drive over to Pickens to Discounted Appliance Warehouse. That's where I buy all of my appliances. Jeff and Johnny and the whole team there, they'll take great care of you. They have great service after the sale. Their extended warranties are in place, and you can buy it today and quite often use it today because they have 11,000 square feet slam full of 1,500 or more appliances waiting on you today. If you want the best deal And if you want to be treated like family, if you want to be treated something more than just a credit card swipe, Discounted Appliance Warehouse is your solution. Check them out today. You can find them online at dawpickens.com. So SpaceX and Tesla CEO Elon Musk, who, as you know, bought X, formerly known as Twitter, and I still haven't figured out why he changed the name of it. He had some pretty harsh words for advertisers who are fleeing the platform X, saying, "Go F yourself." Musk said during a Wednesday afternoon appearance at the New York Times Deal Book Summit. Musk made the comment while he was being interviewed by Andrew Ross Sorkin, speaking about the current advertiser boycott. He's responding to Disney CEO Bob Iger, who earlier discussed Disney pulling advertising from his social media platform. Musk did not hold back.
All of the criticism, there was advertisers leaving. We talked to Bob Iger today.
I hope they stop.
You hope?
Don't advertise.
You don't want them to advertise?
No.
What do you mean?
If somebody's going to try to blackmail me with advertising, blackmail me with money, go yourself.
But
go yourself.
This guy doesn't know how to respond, does he?
I hope it is. Hey, Bob, if you're in the audience.
Well, let me ask you then.
That's how I feel. Don't advertise.
How do you think then about the economics of X? If part of the underlying model, at least today, and maybe it needs to shift, maybe the answer is it needs to shift away from advertising. If you believe that this is the one part of your business where you will be beholden to those who have this view, what do you do?
F-Y.
I understand that, but there's a reality too, right?
Yes. No.
I mean, Linda Yaccarino's right here, and she's got to sell advertising.
Absolutely. So, totally. No. Actually, what this advertising boycott is going to do? It's going to kill the company.
And do you think that
and the whole world will know that those advertisers killed the company, and we will document it in great detail.
But those advertisers, I imagine, are going to say, we didn't kill the company.
Oh yeah.
They're going to say,
tell it to Earth.
But they're going to say, Elon, that you killed the company because you said these things, and that they were inappropriate things, and that they didn't feel comfortable on the platform, right? That's what they're going to say.
And let's see how Earth responds to that.
Quite amazing, huh? Well, just don't advertise. Don't spend your money with me if you don't want to. During the interview, Musk also apologized for endorsing an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory in response to a post on X that helped fuel the advertiser exodus that they're talking about. Musk's comments come just days after he paid a visit to Israel, where he toured a kibbutz attacked by Hamas militants and held talks with top leaders there. Musk, of course, has faced accusations from the Anti-Defamation League, a prominent Jewish civil rights organization, and others of tolerating anti-Semitic messages on the platform since purchasing it last year. Content on X, formerly known as Twitter, of course, has gained increased scrutiny since the war between Israel and Hamas began back in October. A slew of big brands like Disney, IBM, have stopped advertising on X after a report by liberal advocacy group Media Matters said that their ads were appearing alongside pro-Nazi content with white nationalist posts. X retaliated with a lawsuit saying that the Washington, D.C.-based nonprofit manufactured the report to drive advertisers from the platform and destroy the X corporation. Interesting response, though, wasn't it? And speaking of boycotts, Home Depot may be facing a boycott as well. Godfrey Report co-founder Bernie Marcus is proving his loyalty to former President Donald Trump and has managed to infuriate consumers, or some consumers, I should say, while doing so. Bernie Marcus, the former CEO of Home Depot, former co-founder of Home Depot, now has a boycott on his hands after Reuters asked Marcus in a new interview if he would still support Donald Trump's 2024 presidential bid if he was convicted of a crime. Marcus responded by saying, "I think so, because I think it's all trumped up." Marcus also said that he will support him to some extent, but he is not one of his big givers. After some consumers got wind of this new interview, they expressed their outrage and started going to various social media outlets with the hashtag boycott Home Depot. Sammy Soto just yesterday wrote on X, Home Depot billionaire founder says he will support Trump even if convicted. Time to hashtag boycott Home Depot. Katie and Havoc the Rescue also wrote, won't be shopping in Home Depot again. Hashtag boycott Home Depot. Darla N. wrote, Bernie Marcus, co-founder of Home Depot, worth a said $8.8 billion. Boy, I don't know that I've ever seen that number. Worth a said $8.8 billion is once again funding Trump's reelection. I shop at Lowe's. Hashtag boycott Home Depot. And as you know, ever since Trump has officially left office in 2021, the former president has faced a slew of indictments as Democrats try to find some way to keep him off the ballot. One final thing in today's show, we've talked a number of times about judicial reform in South Carolina. There's been a call for how judges are selected after a series of bad decisions by South Carolina judges over the past year. And it appears that maybe the legislature is taking the call for reform seriously this time. In a very rare move, a Lowcountry judge who has increasingly been denounced by members of the legal community and victims' families for a series of questionable judgments is going to lose his job come next summer. Very seldom do these circuit court judges not be reelected. This is not the case. In a 5-5 vote, Circuit Court Judge Bentley Price from Charleston was found unqualified this week by the state's Judicial Merit Selection Commission, following mounting criticisms about his judicial temperament and his leniency towards criminal defendants charged with violent crimes. The commission's vote follows a report by his peers via the South Carolina Bar Association that also concluded that Judge Price was unqualified to serve based on reputation. In his effort to try to keep his seat, Price was challenged by Charleston area attorney Brent Halverson, who also was deemed unqualified by the JMSC. Accordingly, Price's seat on the Ninth Circuit, which consists of Charleston and Berkeley counties, will become vacant upon the expiration of his term next June. Price's firing comes amid ongoing calls for a change in how state judges are selected in South Carolina, and also for greater checks and balances on the lawyer legislators serving on the Judicial Merit Selection Committee, who some say have improperly leveraged their position as legislators to secure favorable rulings for their clients. There's some who believe, and I would tend to agree with this, you shouldn't have lawyer legislators, men and women who appoint the judges, practicing in front of these same judges. We've seen some really sweetheart deals this year as a result of that. Price was first elected as a judge in 2019. Former state representative and joint and Judicial Merit Selection Panel member Peter McCoy was instrumental in getting him on the bench, according to First Circuit Solicitor David Pascoe, one of the major players who's now calling for judicial reform. Since his time on the bench, Price has become embattled over multiple rulings where violent offenders were shown leniency, especially those defendants represented by a lawyer legislator. Evidently, it didn't do him much good now that a little light has been shined on the process. An example that was given in 2021, and this is from the state newspaper, Judge Price presided over a bond hearing where the defendant, Dartez Ferguson, was charged with murder. Despite Ferguson having pleaded guilty to a slew of other violent crimes, including assault and battery, strong arm robbery, firing a gun into a car, Judge Price granted bail to Ferguson, who was represented by State Representative Leon Stavronakis. There you go again, another lawyer legislator appearing in front of a judge whom he helped get elected. Following the bond release, according to the state newspaper, Ferguson, the defendant, habitually violated house arrest and curfew restraints, prompting the solicitor's office to file a motion to revoke his bond, according to court records. Nevertheless, after a bond revocation hearing in August, Judge Price once again sided with Stavronakis, the lawyer legislator, and permitted Ferguson to remain out on the streets where he could potentially harm your family. Good to see, again, that maybe there's some change on the horizon. That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studio. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined our mailing list, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails with the most up-to-date news. Thanks for spending a few minutes of your day with me. Hope you have a great day. Keep your comments coming via the Truth text line, 864-477-JOEY, and keep your emails coming as well, joey@joeyhudson.com. We're back again tomorrow. Until then, remember, folks, God's got this. He's still in control.